What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Conspiracy or Just a Coincidence. I am Jack Allen. First, if you haven't followed me, go follow me at COJAC Podcast. And it's the same on everything. So try to make it easy. And yeah, that's literally it. So if you haven't heard, quick backstory before I introduce the guest. So my good friend Odd Man, who you all know on the show, Odd Man, when I first started getting, he recommended this lovely gentleman that I'm about to introduce. And I've listened to this episode about propaganda with him. And I don't know if he remembers this. This isn't a slight, but I DM'd him about 2 years ago, and it's finally culminated in this show. So I'm very excited, Brad.
I'm sorry it took me that long to.
Oh, I'm just joking, dude. You're a busy guy. But so I'm so excited to have you on. So Brad Binkley, thanks for coming on the show, dude. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on, Jack. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it. I'm now inspired to get back in the gym because instead of just buying smaller and smaller tank tops when I wear them, because sometimes I wear them on the cam show. The tank tops aren't going to be able to get any smaller if I don't start working out again. And you're inspiring me. You look like you've been pumping iron. I need to get back. Need to get back in the gym.
Dude, slow and steady. That's the way. That's what I tell everybody. Just slow and steady, and I'm in recovery, so I switched from shooting heroin to lifting weights. And reading conspiracy books.
That's cool. So it's a productive addiction.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Exactly, dude.
That's a great idea.
I guess if people could you give? I mean, a real brief backstory on you, because I'm sure many people know who you are, but just in case if they don't.
I am host of the Propaganda Report and the Drive Time News Blast. I do daily news, kind of from a conspiracy angle. I try to see beneath the surface of the news to talk about what the propaganda meaning of it is. I've studied propaganda for like 10 years now, the history of it, and I studied journalism in college and economics, but journalism was what I was actually more interested in. And I spent a lot of time working in the entertainment industry, acting, stand-up comedy, improv. And I got to meet a bunch of people who have different perspectives and stuff. And I never stopped of studying propaganda along the way. And I taught stand-up comedy for a long time and improv.
I didn't know that, dude.
Yeah, I love doing it. Like, it was teaching stand-up comedy was like one of my favorite things that I've ever done. I did it for years. And what I found doing that was that the thing that held people back was that they had been convinced that they could not do certain things because they didn't have things that were outside of them.
Okay.
And I opposed that radically, that you were given this checklist of what to do in life. You have to do 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you don't do that, then, well, you're just screwed. And I came to the conclusion that's just all propaganda programming that people have grown up into, and it has convinced them that they have this ceiling unless they go out and get all this, these things that aren't even connected to the success of something. Like the education system is completely disconnected to practical skills at this point. And so kind of from that point on, I really started hitting propaganda study like a lot harder. And I went down the rabbit hole of propaganda, so to speak, and I read everything I could get my hands on from the 1800s, early 1900s, and I just wanted to kind of crack that code of the way they psychologically manipulated people and how to kind of expose that to show people that those barriers are an illusion, and that they just got to see that and they can go through it. So people can sometimes be blackpilled by propaganda. It's all controlled, whatever. Of course, they're always going to control things, but there's a ebb and flow, a back and forth where they adjust, we adjust, they adjust, we adjust. And I think it's hopeful to be able to expose the propaganda because you're not restrained by them. Of course, they're going to continue trying to oppress, but it's not a black pill thing. It's an empowering thing. And that's kind of my backstory related to propaganda anyway.
And that's where I remember you were talking about Edward Bernays on Odd Man's show.
Yeah.
So, and I know this isn't we're talking Templars tonight, but you said you read like books on the 1800s in propaganda.
Well, there's just a lot of I used to do this on Google all the time. All the Google's changed what you can find. I would just type in certain propaganda terms.
Okay.
And if you do quotes and propaganda plus, and then quotes, whatever other term you want to put in. It's those search modifiers. And I would just plus 1800s, or I would try to, you could adjust the time thing. I don't think it goes back that far. But if you start doing that and you attach PDF to it, then it will go back pretty far. And what I discovered is in the older books, like the Edward Bernays books, the Walter Lippmann's, Harold Laswell from the early 1900s during World War I, is they're all citing books that they read and learned from that are from the 1800s. And so I would then look those books up, and you can often find the entire book on like the Internet Archive.
Yeah, right.
And those are, a lot of them are psychological based. There's one of them, there's one of them about just crowds and crowd manipulation that Bernays was completely inspired by, because he was inspired by his uncle Freud.
Yeah.
And this other guy who wrote this book called Crowds, Le Bon, I think was his name. And I think that's the first one from back in the 1800s that I read. It's interesting to see that it's the same mindset really all the way back then as it is now. It's just that the technology has improved and we're all far more connected and information can travel far more rapidly.
Interesting, dude. No, that's a fact. And now that I'm thinking about it, I mean, even Napoleon, and this isn't real, but he would release his bulletins and he would lie. Like he'd say, we caught 10,000 soldiers, 400 cannons, when in reality, maybe 1,000, maybe, just.
That's funny you say that, because one of Napoleon's books, I can't remember what it was, the name of it, but it's considered by some to be one of the first propaganda type manuals and demonstrations in propaganda. And they talk about Napoleon and Alexander the Great, their type of propaganda, because of course they didn't have as many people to reach, but it was harder for them to reach them,
right,
would be in the form of putting their face on coins, an intimidation factor and stuff like that. And it's really a fascinating subject.
Yeah.
If you can't, a lot of people, they get too dark about it. I'm not like that. I can stay pretty light about things. And I think it's interesting.
Yeah. And it's existed. It's going to always exist. Right.
Totally.
I mean, how many, and I'm reading a book right now on the 30-year war and the Habsburgs in Hungary or wherever. So one of those countries that they were ruling, they created censors to prevent certain news coming out. They would shut down newspapers.
Yeah.
So that's such an awesome topic to be an expert in, because it's
one
just
more
so
thing.
powerful.
I won't derail us too much, but they used to teach people to write. So the people who learned to write were the ones who kind of controlled the information, and they wouldn't teach everybody to write. So that, in a sense, was a form of empowering people to propagandize those who could not write.
Interesting. Right. Dude, that's awesome. And last question about because I've seen Edward Bernays' books and I haven't ever read it. Does he talk? What does he talk about in his books?
Bernays is. So I would suggest anybody who wanted to just really get some insight into the way that some of these elitists think, to read Edward Bernays' books, because they're easy to read and he's so arrogant and he's so giddy about manipulating people. There's one book, I think it's Public Opinion, that, and I believe it's on page 75, because I cite this one a lot, where he talks giddily about how during World War I, the public, they fell for the fake atrocity stories that the Committee on Public Information made up. They weren't real. And he talked about how they recycled those stories from back in the 1700s. They just used the same ones that were used back then. And they nobody questions an atrocity, because we see what happens. You get just kicked off platforms basically if you do it. So they knew that. And he boasts about how they deceived the public, bamboozled them, and that it caused a backlash leading up to World War II, that nobody believed them and trust them. And so they talk giddily about that stuff. And he basically just lays out the use of propaganda. He lays out tactical mechanisms that he sees, and how it's based in psychology, based in groups. It's the easiest read of all of the propagandists, in my opinion.
Okay.
That one, and another great one. So just the book Propaganda by Edward Bernays is a good one.
Yes.
Short and sweet. Another one, Crystallizing Public Information, that he wrote. And that one talks a lot about...
I've seen that. Okay.
Yeah, how all news is propaganda. All of it. The reason it's in the news is because it was chosen to be there to serve a purpose. That doesn't mean it's not real.
Right.
So it just means it would be left out if it weren't serving some broader purpose. So it's in that selection of it. And I found that fascinating. That was probably the most eye-opening book of his that I read. And another really, really great one is Harold Laswell, Propaganda During World War. And so he's like sarcastic and funny when he writes about it. He's also an elitist, though, like a buddy of Bernays. But he just talks about how in order to compel people to fight in a war that they would not fight in, they talk about getting us in America to go from neutral to hungry for war during World War I.
Yeah.
And you got to create that enemy. You got to demonize that. You can't split up who the enemy is. And we see this all the time today. Trump, Putin, stuff like that. Because people have to have one evil demon to focus on, and they have to believe that person and those they influence are going to destroy their values and everything they've ever known. And if they are to stop it, they must engage in war and be willing to kill. And it's so bold in their writing of it. And I think back then, these were books they just kind of sent to each other to read that not a lot of people got exposure to, that people today can easily find and read.
Yeah, but then now people today don't read. So
I know, everybody's on TikTok. It's going to be... Yeah, it's tough, man. It's just so many distractions. It's hard to get through like a page in a book nowadays.
I know, dude. I know. And it's, I mean, like, I'm sure you've seen like those man on the street interviews. I forget, there's this one guy, he's maybe like, I don't know what, he's like not white. I don't know what, but he does. He's like a conservative guy. I can't think of his name, but he does those. And he just says, yes, like you're right to every question he asks them. But it's terrifying. I mean, it's literally like, what countries make up North America or what, and dude, or where was the Vietnam War fought? I mean, the answers these people have, it's scary. It's scary. Yeah. But all right. So, I just so you're on mute. I don't know if I muted you, Bink, but anyway,
that was me. I muted it because I was adjusting my weird light.
Okay, perfect. Well, so I brought you on because my boy Skeptic, who's in the chat always, who's so nice to my wife as well, always comments to her when she's on it. But I've been doing a lot of Templar episodes, as you guys that are here know. And so he brought up Mr. Binkley here and said that he has talked about Templars in the current times, which I know nothing about. So I wanted to, let me just give you I'm going to give you my theory, and then so for a while, I used to think when I first started reading and everything, I accepted the Templars were attacked, even though they were central bankers. They were good. It was the evil Catholic Church that didn't like them. That King Philip, he was broke, so he wanted their money. That's why he did it. And they made up all these lies about them and how they just were, even though they were committing usury, they were still just good Christians. And then I read this book, Secret Societies and Subversive Movements by Nesta Helen Webster. And she breaks down this and just destroys that for me. And how, the Templars, they say they got these confessions through torture, which they did torture in France, but many, England, Sicily, all these countries, they did not torture. They got the same exact confessions from these people. So she really just, and so now I am in the camp that the Templars were a Gnostic group doing, orgy, sodomies, anything you can think of what like the Canaanite religion does or whatever. They were taking part in it. At least that's my theory. And so I thought the way it ends is Templars 1308 or whatever, and they pop out as Rosicrucians, as they use that Freemasonry and create these other groups. And that's one of the top groups that those beliefs at least are still alive today. And so I thought that personally, I think it kind of ended like, this is what I thought, because Freemasonry is not that powerful anymore. And, maybe NGOs are the new secret societies. But what's your take on the Knights Templar? And then how do they exist today, I guess?
So I don't know that I'm going to be able to fully answer those questions with this story, although it's going to depend on what people believe is true about the beliefs of the people involved in the story that I'm going to tell you related to Kamala Harris. That idea of the Knights Templar and it disappearing and them being one way, and then you read another book and they're presented another way.
Yes,
I believe that all of these groups are, when they have a level of power, there is going to be a growth in them to where, and I know it's almost stereotypical at this point, where it's like 33rd degree Masons think they're in the know, but they're actually clueless. They're there to create that shell around the people who are actually in the know. And I think the that was probably the case back then as well. And I also think that infiltration for the purpose of sabotage to any group with influence is always going to happen. So no matter how great or good a group might be, if they have power and influence, especially ideologically or with religion, there will be attempts to infiltrate them to either bring them down internally or to sabotage them, giving them a bad name. I recommend everybody reading it was the OSS, which predated the CIA, the Simple Sabotage Manual. It's online at the CIA's website. And you can think about those tactics and think about how they apply back hundreds of years. And today, it's just ways to get in there. And it's just so petty, too. Causing frustrations, harming people's reputation in ways that they know is wrong, that makes it inescapable because of the way they control the perception. So when it comes to that type of stuff, that's how I view any group that was once considered good, that view might have changed. The Templars, the only stuff that I really know about them, whether or not it's true, I'm not certain, is apparently they were like the first police force. In the first organized police force. And I learned that when I was going through this case related to Kamala Harris. And there's a group that exists today, or it did. I think some of them still do. I don't know how prominent they are, but they claimed to be the descendants of that first police force. And they claimed that they called themselves the Masonic Fraternal Police Order or Police Department, the MFPD, if you will. So it's like freeze, MFPD is arresting you. And that is what the Kamala Harris story is related to. It's this claim by somebody who worked in her office to be a member of this police department and to have jurisdiction over 33 states, all of their police forces, because they date back to the first police force. This was what they told people. And also over Mexico. And they went around trying to exercise this jurisdiction, claiming that Kamala herself was aware of this. And I can tell you that story now if you like. And
yeah, that'd be
great. You can interject whenever. I'm going to be going off notes. I haven't told this one in a while. I'll go back through it. And just going back through this again, my old notes, it's just like how crazy this story is. So before you hear the story, it's like Kamala Harris is the vice president of the United States, could very well be president if for whatever reason Joe steps down or is pushed out, which I think is a possibility because that's how you get the first female president, female African-American president who's immensely unlikable, Kamala Harris, without having to vote her in. And I think they might use a Hunter Biden story to push him out and claim, and the media pretend like they did it and they exposed it. I've been speculating about that. But so you have this woman who could very well be president. Kamala has never at any point in time that I can discover, and I've looked pretty hard, has ever commented herself on this story. She's never been asked to her directly about this story you're about to hear. The only comment was from a spokesperson from the California Attorney General in 2015, her office, that made a couple of comments about it, and that's it. And when you hear this, it's going to be like, wow, nobody wanted to kind of ask her about that while she's running for president. So I'll stop rambling and I'll go into the
You're not rambling
now.
at all. No, I know nothing. So I need the backstory. So perfect.
All right, well, stop me if something doesn't make sense or if you just want to interject and chat about it.
All right.
Okay, so back in 2015, Kamala, she was the Attorney General for California. That was back when she was in her heyday of, prosecuting all those people who smoked a little bit of weed, before she became a big weed smoking fan.
Right, and a big Tupac fan.
Yeah, right. Years later, exactly, yeah. And while she was the Attorney General of California, there was a man who worked in her office, a government employee named Brandon Keil. That's Keil. Now, in 2015, while working in Kamala's office for Kamala, Keil was arrested for some really wild stuff. I mean, some pretty wild stuff. Before I tell you what that wild stuff is, I want to really emphasize here that one of the comments that her spokesperson made in the aftermath of this when Brandon was arrested was the spokesperson just basically made it seem like Keil was a low-level staffer who Kamala never interacted with and knew nothing about. That was kind of, the way to distance. And I just want to go ahead and put that claim to bed right now because Keil was not a low-level staffer. It was the opposite, actually. And he worked closely with Kamala, and she thought very highly of him, so highly of him that she actually appointed him with a handful of other people, just a small number of people who she trusted enough to put on a special team that was assigned to work on what ended up being her signature program when she was Attorney General, and that was her truancy program, to go after the parents that were not sending their kids to school and prosecute them. And she did very successfully. And this program, this truancy program, after she announced that she was running for president, or the presidential primary for the Democrats in 2016, the first town hall she did after that announcement, the very first thing that she bragged about as her crowning achievement was this truancy project, which she assigned this Brandon Keel person, one of a very small number of people, to work on. And there was a report published in 2014 that there was a thank you section. This was from the Attorney General's office. Kamala was thanking very broadly and generically a lot of people, and then a special thank you section that had just a handful of people in it. Brandon Keel was specially thanked for his work on this special team. On this he worked closely with her. I read where one of the investigators talked about how he worked directly underneath her, and there's no merit to the claim that she had nothing to do with this guy. She had a lot to do with him, which makes it even crazier because he threw her name around while he was doing the stuff about the Knights Templar and trying to get in to these police departments. And this stuff is also in news articles from 2015 too, which is crazy to me. You can see all this in California newspapers, and nobody ever asked her. I mean, that's the first question I would ask Kamala Harris if I were a debate moderator, which I would never be a debate moderator because of that.
Absolutely, you wouldn't.
Exactly.
No,
yeah,
no, you wouldn't.
Right. Yeah. So I have a clip here that I'm gonna play for you.
Yeah.
It's just like a 2-minute overview of the arrest. And it'll give you a little bit. I mean, it'll give you clarity on what Brandon did, and then
awesome.
I mean, the story just gets weirder and weirder and weirder. So let me share that there. I love StreamYard. It's a good program.
It is, dude. I never knew you could do this. So that's awesome.
Oh, really? Yeah, it's awesome, man. It's the easiest way to do it, in my opinion. Okay, make sure you have the right one here. Share. All right, yeah. So this is actually from my old episode. I couldn't find the clip on my computer. So I'm playing it from that episode.
This kind of thing every day.
You can hear that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone who's read the book The Da Vinci Code or seen the movie probably knows something about the Knights Templar. They're basically an ancient law enforcement organization that these 3 people who were arrested claim to be a part of. A lot of people think this group is fake. However, there are real consequences for impersonating an officer of the law. That's just what the LA County Sheriff's Department arrested these folks for. Take a look at their mugshots right here. These 3 people have all identified themselves as being members of the Masonic Fraternal Police Department. And according to the LA Times, one of the suspects, Brandon Keel, was an aide to California State Attorney General Kamala Harris. When officers searched the homes of these 3 in Santa Clarita, they say they found weapons, badges, vehicles, uniforms, and other law enforcement type equipment. Just the kind of items that would give the impression that these people were real sworn police officers. Keel, along with Tanette Hayes and David Henry, the chief of the so-called Masonic Fraternal Police Department, were all arrested for impersonating a peace officer. Now, this is a serious offense that can come with prison time. Law enforcement says they became aware of this illegitimate police organization when the group contacted the Santa Clarita Sheriff's Station and met with the station's captain. Now, it's unclear why the group wanted to do that. The Masonic Police Organization claims to be a part of a modern-day branch of the fabled Knights Templar, a group that dates back basically 1,000 years. As the chief of Santa Clarita's home, the windows out there, we checked it out. They were all shut. No one came to the door when we knocked. Neighbors tell us the Masonic couple that lives there were very friendly, and no one thought they were suspicious.
Okay, that's not necessarily true that no one thought that they were suspicious, because there's other reports that they apparently would have these big police parties where all these people who were dressing like police officers, not official police uniforms, maybe official to them, would come over. There'd be cop cars parked everywhere. There's apparently weapons everywhere. It seems as though this group of people truly believed what they said. So there's people who are con artists, and then there's people who believe it. Yeah. And I could find no reason for them to pretend to do this to con people, because it wasn't really a profitable endeavor. It didn't seem. And so just to clarify, he wasn't an aide to Kamala. His official title listed in the truancy report is Deputy Director of Community Affairs.
Wow.
So this guy, he was, I I get so I want to spill all the beans about the story right now, but I would just have a giant mouthful because there's so much information. So I'll take.
So just to read, so these guys, these Templar Knights, they would have cop cars, but they weren't actually licensed police officers.
Yes, they were not the way they weren't like official LAPD. So their claim was that they were the original PD.
So that's why they're allowed to they're allowed to do this.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that is what they told actual police officers that they spoke with, which it gets really. It's just a wild story, man.
Have you ever seen? In Florida, there was this guy. He's been arrested a lot, and he would deck out his car and like it looked just like a cop, and it was called like Dade County, not police, but Dade County, and it looked just like a cop car. But he was like he would for funerals and stuff like that. He would block the roads, and
so he would like work as a cop.
Yes, because in Florida they have weird rules that you can. And he would block off roads. Like he would have all these guys in other cop cars with bikes that it just wouldn't say like police, but so this is what this reminds me of. But anyway, continue.
Yeah, it is. It's similar to that. Like you wonder where they get the costumes and stuff, and you wonder how they find each other. Yeah. And I have some stuff that I was able to find on the Wayback Machine, and I'm going to show you some pictures of these people and some of the outfits they wear, which is the people, the very well-known people they're photographed with. Well, I'll save that for a little bit of mystery until we get there. So that was the overview of what they were charged with. And they were just going around these multiple police departments making these same claims, and they would wear those full police uniforms. Most of the time, there was one of them who sometimes wore a different outfit, which you'll see in a second. They were equipped with these badges, and before they met with these police chiefs, around the state of California, they went to a lot of them. Keel, the guy who worked for Kamala, he wrote letters to all of these departments saying that they needed to meet with them and inform them that they, the Masonic Fraternal Police Department, would be exercising their jurisdiction over all of these police departments in California and police departments in 33 states. There's that number 33 and in Mexico, which I thought that was odd. They threw Mexico.
Yeah.
In there as well. Can you imagine a group of three people coming in, full police uniform, saying, "We're here to just let you know that we are the original police department. We're descendants of the Knights Templar, and we now have we're now in charge." I mean, that is like,
insane.
To a cop too,
right? Yeah, they're not the most open to that kind of talk.
Not at all, and they even had a website that they put up. So it wasn't like they were hiding this. They had a website describing all of this stuff they put up there. There's like misspellings all over it too. And during the interactions with these police chiefs, Keel, so the investigators talked to all these police chiefs, and Keel was described as the guy who was the initiator, the facilitator, who did all the talking while the other two were there. The woman, Tanetta Hayes, she is described as never saying anything, looking like she's just along for the ride. And the other guy, David Henry, called himself Brandon's father-in-law, which doesn't make sense because they're not that different in age. It was weird. And he also called himself the Grand Master of this fraternal police order. So he went as the Grand Master, which he also did when he met with Bill Clinton and some other well-known people. And how did Keel get them in the door for these meetings? Well, he used his Kamala Harris Attorney General's office badge. He told them he worked for Kamala Harris, and he had an official government ID to back it up. And when they left the meetings, he left his Department of Justice card so they could contact him later. So again, like, it's not, he's walking around proudly saying this stuff and saying, "I work for Kamala Harris. Here's my card. Call me anytime."
Dude.
Right. It's crazy, isn't it?
That's nuts, dude. Like the balls on this guy.
I know. Dude. So either he believes it or you're right. He's got some, cojones.
Yeah.
And he was actually asked by the investigator after he was arrested what Kamala and the Attorney General's office, what they thought about what he was doing, using her name to get these meetings and say all these seemingly crazy things. And he said, "They're well aware of everything I'm doing and they support it." Has anybody ever asked Kamala about that?
Yeah, dude.
Not that I can find.
Right.
Like this woman could be president, and that is out there,
And not a single question.
not one question about it. It just, and if somebody asks that question too, they probably just get blasted on Twitter as conspiracy crazy.
Oh, I'm sure. I just, and like, I mean, not that I would expect Fox News to run this story, but you would think that at least even Fox News would say, you know, a watered down version, like this guy, he pretended to be leave the Templar part out, but just whatever. He's
Right.
pretending to be a cop, you know, somewhere, dude, somewhere.
Right, because a lot of people, like you mentioned, do get in. That's why it's a law. It's illegal to pretend to be impersonate a peace officer because a lot of people try to do it. But not a lot of people claim to be descendants of the Knights Templar. You know, it's taking it a step further. And so once they were arrested, as I mentioned, Keel, when Kamala's office was asked about it, along with saying he was a low-level staffer, they said Kamala is paying close attention to the story, and Brandon Keel is on paid leave.
Okay.
Paid leave. He went around saying he was a descendant of the Knights Templar, and he now has jurisdiction over 33 states, Mexico, and he gets paid leave? He's not fired?
Right. Dude.
That's wild.
Yes.
I think it's because he was so valuable to her. Like he was put on the best assignments. Like that's how much she trusted him with this truancy stuff, that he must have done such good work that she just needed to keep him around, I guess. And his Twitter account, by the way, too.
He has a Twitter account?
He does. I'll tell you more about that when we get to that part in the story.
Okay.
But the only thing he's ever tweeted about, and it's not many tweets, is Kamala. It's a little weird. It's really, really weird. So they were arrested and charged. Keel was charged with 6 counts of impersonating a peace officer and 1 count of unlawful use of a government ID. And the woman, Hayes, was charged with the exact same thing, 6 counts of impersonating a police officer. And she was not charged with the ID thing because she wasn't doing that. And the other guy, David Henry, who is really the most interesting part of the story, we're going to get to here in a second. He was charged, I think, with 4 counts of impersonating a peace officer because he didn't always wear the cop uniform. He had another uniform that he donned. I'm going to show you here in a second when I have all the links in my notes. So when I get to it in my notes, I'll be able to pull it up on screen. And let's talk about David Henry right here, the guy. So he claimed to be Keel's father-in-law. He also called himself the Grand Master of the Masonic Fraternal Police Order. And he used to have a Google Plus page, which is gone. But I was able to pull it up on the Wayback Machine and get some of the images. And I could find some of the other images too. So I will show you some of those. Let me pull those up here.
All right.
Where did that go? Hold on a second here.
Yeah, take your...
This guy he's a character, man. I have this titled Weird Photo on my, there we go. All right, I'm going to share that with you. This is the best right here, dude. This guy must have just somehow found all these prominent people and he got photos taken with them. And I don't know what they were thinking, getting their picture taken with this guy, but they did it. And, here, this isn't any prominent people, but that's him in the middle right there.
No way.
That's the outfit he wore.
Boss, dude. Look at that cool guy.
I mean, that's nuts. And they got this gold. I mean, it's a great outfit. He wears it well also. And I wonder how, actually, I might be able to find. Here's the other one I'm going to show you. You see that one?
What?
That's Bill Clinton there.
Yeah.
Pull that down right here. Can you still see that, or did that go off screen? Yeah. All right.
Wait, here. I'm going
to switch it. I'm going to take that one off and put a different one on.
Okay.
I'm going to show you that Bill Clinton photo a little bit bigger because there's photos of this guy with Bill Clinton, with Maxine Waters, with just a number of other people in Congress. Put that
there
up.
we go. Let me hit this.
There you go. There he is, dude. That's him. Bill Clinton. There's a picture of this guy giving an award, and the Masonic Order giving an award to Maxine Waters, and they're dressed in their funky stuff, and she's just accepting the award. Of
course.
It's crazy. Now, how they got close to them, I don't know, but this guy seems like just like a wacko at first.
Look at him. Yeah.
He's dressed like a clown, or I don't even want to say that. Maybe there's something to whatever it is they think they're into, because you will see that they absolutely believed the stories they were telling. And find my place, my notes here real quick.
They kind of, dude. Have you ever heard of like, sovereign citizens?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a group called the Moorish Nationals. They're really big in Philly, where I live. But this sounds exactly like them too.
I've heard that name. What are they?
They're just like, they claim that in, I guess, Morocco, or what was like the first country to recognize the United States. So they signed this treaty, like, whatever. And so basically in Philadelphia, they're big on selling their own passports, selling IDs, saying you don't, when you go to court, like you buy their classes, and because you're a Moorish national, you won't, be prosecuted.
It's like the Amish almost, where they have their own little community.
Yeah, what's that?
Is it like the Amish where they have their own rules and stuff?
Their own rules, but yeah, they don't live, but they're all on so many, like they meet in the park, yeah. Doesn't work.
A meeting like this, I would just wonder, I would want to like go to one of these just to see what it's like, but I don't know that I would want them to know that that's why I was there, because there's no telling what's going to happen then. But this David Henry guy, that guy we just saw, he was an he is an Emmy award-winning journalist. He used to work for a local Fox affiliate, and in a speech when he won his Emmy, at the end of it, he thanked Ice Cube for setting up his career.
Damn.
It's crazy. It's not. I saw the video of it. I don't have the link to that on me, but he did. He's just, the guy won an Emmy for his journalism work. So he obviously is intelligent.
Right.
There's no doubt about that.
And he's the one that was buddies with Maxine Waters.
He's the one that gave Maxine Waters the award, and he's the one that, along with the guy who worked for Kamala and the woman, went to the police departments claiming to have jurisdiction over them.
Okay.
So he was called the Grand Master, the leader, even though he didn't say much, and Brandon Keel did all the talking.
Okay, got it. Okay.
And I believe at times he wore that outfit instead of the police uniform. And that's why he did not get 6 charges of impersonating a police officer, because he was dressed as the Masonic leader guy. And so we fast forward to the court proceedings involving these cases. And this is where it starts to get really just crazy. With the woman and Keel facing the same 6 charges. So she was actually facing less charges than Keel, and Henry facing less charges than both of them. The case fell apart against them, okay? And only one of them ended up doing time behind bars. Any guess on which one that was?
Oh.
The woman.
Kamala?
Not Kamala. The woman who went with Brandon Keel and David Hayes to all these police departments claiming to have jurisdiction over them, impersonating cops.
Where?
The one that they all told investigators said nothing and was just there, kind of there along for the ride, who did the least, is the only one who spent time behind bars. Which is, it's under Kamala's law, they treat black women very well, apparently. By putting the one who did nothing in prison, they were facing up to 3.5 years in prison. Now, the reason that Brandon Keel didn't serve any time in prison is because on the day of his pretrial hearings, the case was dismissed. The difference.
Shocking! My God!
Totally.
Oh my God!
That woman probably wished that she was a prized employee of Kamala Harris at that moment. They claimed that the evidence collection that they collected for Keel was tainted somehow, which meant they had to throw all the evidence out, and therefore they had to throw the case out because they didn't have the evidence, which is strange because they were able to convict her.
That's a great point. Yeah. And how does that get tainted? It's not drugs. It's not,
Right. No. Yeah. It's Kamala throwing the case out because this guy knows too much about her, most likely. And now David Henry, the Grand Master, he didn't face trial. Here's why he didn't face trial. On the day, I think it was the day before he was set to do his first court date, that night, he dropped dead. He died of a pulmonary embolism, they say. He was 46 years old.
Totally because they are like random, though, so that's the perfect lie. Perfect.
It is the perfect lie. However, he was maybe anticipating that something might happen to him. And I was fortunate enough to stumble upon, this is just crazy, to stumble upon some videos that he made online. He I don't know if this is his YouTube channel or somebody else's YouTube channel who put all of these videos up.
Okay.
But they're still up there. And I remember the first time I played them on air, they had like almost no views. And I don't think they have many now, but let me find.
They're all from you.
Yeah. Okay, so I have one pulled up on the audio clip, and then we can go watch some of the video ones if you guys want to, just to see what he looks like. But just listen to real closely to what he's saying in this video. My jaw dropped the first time I heard this. All right, here we go.
Detective Amelia Hernandez, she's dumb. She doesn't understand disorder.
Oh, I got that on double speed. Sorry, let me slow that down. So this is David Henry, the guy who dropped dead. And this is a couple of months before he dropped dead, right after he was charged with the impersonating a police officer offenses.
Okay.
And he's talking about the investigator into the case.
But the United Nations, many of you do. So I'm reaching out to you, as I have reached out to President Barack Obama and U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch and Kamala D. Harris, the Attorney General of California, and Congresswoman Maxine Waters, and others. They all received letters involving this matter. I'm just saying.
The matter he's talking about is the investigation into his case, and he's saying that he sent letters to Maxine Waters, who he is photographed with, I think years earlier, giving her award, and Kamala Harris, who works with his buddy, and he's telling them in those letters to stop this prosecution, which they did for Brandon, not so much for him.
Asking for it to stop.
Do you know what that's about?
That was Monica from the previous time we did it. That I actually intended to play that one second, but this one, it builds suspense a little bit more anyway. Here is now, this is the best one right here. I feel bad for the guy, but man, this is just wild. All right, here he is. Wait, is that up on screen?
Yeah,
there we go. Thank you. This is David Henry speaking.
Okay.
You're wrong. You are wrong. Detective Amelia Hernandez, you put a hit on my life and Reverend Tonette Hayes' life and members of the Armenian community's life. And you, who the hell do you think you are? If you're ready to kill me, bring it. Come on, bring it.
Whoa.
Okay.
Wait, when was that?
All right, so yeah, he said they were trying to kill him.
Right.
And then, like in the next video, he's pleading to Kamala and Barack for help. Now, I maybe that's a coincidence. Maybe he said that about everybody, but man, that seemed a bit strange.
Yeah.
Especially, yeah. Go ahead, react. I've been talking way too much.
No, dude, that's just again. I'm just shocked that none of this at all has ever been brought up to Kamala.
It's right.
Or
how do you not
Kamala,
ask
whatever.
her about this? How does she get away with not commenting on this? Especially when they told the investigators that Kamala knew and approved of what they were doing. And just to give you a little bit of the description of this YouTube video from this guy says, make sure this is the right one here. Attorneys involved in everyone. Okay. Jim McDonald and his corrupt department, or Detective Amelia Hernandez, plotting to kill female Reverend Tonetta Hayes and Grand Master David Henry X and Brandon Keel of the Department of Justice. We all feel the Los Angeles District Attorney Office is involved so we need everyone. We need the Knights Templar from Mexico to come join in and protect your Grand Master David Henry X from the corrupt LA Sheriff's Police Department who is trying to kill your Grand Master David Henry X. Please alert everyone from Colombia and I can't tell SINALCA. I'm not sure where that is. But I mean, he's got this long description in these videos just talking about this stuff. And in multiple videos, he's pleading to Kamala. He's pleading to Barack. Stop it. They're going to kill me.
Yeah.
Then he died. And it's
Totally by conspiracy or just a coincidence.
Exactly. Right in line with your show theme. It's perfect. And
go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to ask. So besides the faking of the police, what was like? Were there any other nefarious activities that were attributed to this Knights Templar group?
Not that I've been able to discover, other than there were the parties they used to have with all of the people that would come over to their house. And there was people who felt threatened by that because all of them knew that they weren't official police as they knew them. And they kind of flaunted their weapons around. So I didn't discover anything that they were charged with. I will show you something. I should take that back. And I've never actually showed this before because I couldn't find it until I found it again today. But I've discovered this on Twitter, which is a photo that this one account just links this photo over and over and over again and says that like the Department of Justice and the Knights Templar is doing this stuff. It seems like crazy, wild stuff, but I'm going to show it to you anyway because it does reference Brandon Keel. I'm going to add this image to the share thing here. Here we go.
Yeah.
It's top. Well, no, I got to do it a different way. It's the wrong type of file. Hold on one sec.
Oh, dude.
Okay, here we go. Let's get that. And still producing it in real time. We got to be multi-talented when we.
You do, dude. You have to be good at everything if you're a podcaster like we are here.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, perfect. So, we got it.
Yeah, get a look at this photo.
Senator.
So, a senator and former California state legislature Mike Davis King taking Illuminati blood oath rituals, and I don't know who that is.
Yeah,
and it's an image of two black men. Who one of them has no shirt on, but has a loose tie and then has a bunch of cords and stuff wrapped around his body and his neck. And then there's another one where it has senator written across this person's chest. And they're both blindfolded and they're both shirtless and they're both kind of tied up a little bit. And then it has an arrow pointing to what they say is Brandon Keel. It says Illuminati GHP Brandon Keel giving Illuminati blood oath. At the bottom, it says, GHP Brandon Keel, 33rd, and Grand Master David Henry, 33rd, is over 42nd congressmen and women and 26 senators, I guess saying they have control over them. Now, this is probably just a bunch of bogus stuff, but in light of all of the other stuff, and in light of that guy dying after saying they were going to kill him, and in light of the fact that you can't find a trace of Brandon Keel online since 2015 when this happened. His Twitter account stopped dead cold when this happened. No trace of him.
Damn.
It makes you kind of say, I wonder what's up with this image.
Right. Was everyone black in the Knights Templar in this group here?
Well, I think there were a few white guys in some of the images of them posting. Yeah. He does talk a lot about the Black Panthers and stuff in some of his videos.
Okay, it's almost around. And now I don't believe. I've only heard this through Bishop Larry Gators, who I don't know if you know who that is. He just makes shit up, but he talked a lot about the Boule Secret Society, and it was all African American. So I was just wondering, maybe. Which is totally not, I don't think out of the question. That doesn't seem.
That's what it did come off that way a little bit.
Yeah,
in the way they presented themselves. Let me here. I'll show you his old David Henry's old Google Plus whatever that was called. Which they've taken some of the videos off of this or images, but there's still some up there. And see, it says Matrix, the only choice you have is me. I give heaven or hell. This is his Google Plus page, his old one from the Wayback Machine. I am that you are not. Eternal life I am. Grand Master Henry Illuminati. So is it Illuminati or Knights Templar? It's starting to get, I don't know. And,
well, I saw that on the one photo they said that, but it's
right.
It's kind of interchangeable, I'm sure.
It says kind of Illuminati Grand Master David Henry X. Our accepting members age 21 and up must always be ready to protect. And like you see those there, these images. I mean, that's just kind of some weird, crazy imagery there. I don't know whether those are like diamond skulls or what. I don't know what those are.
And it says NWO on the one here.
Oh yeah. It says Illuminati jewelry collection of the most expensive Masonic Illuminati. Ring price tag. The price tag is your life. Can you afford that? Question mark is what he said. Yeah, very threatening. I mean, this guy kind of walked around talking like this all the time, and yet he was an Emmy-winning journalist.
Right. And so that was we can write off Corey Good, insane, right? A lot of these people that have these fantastical, the ones that message you, would you like to join the Illuminati? They're insane. They're crazy, scammers, whatever. But the fact that they were so close that they were defended and even corruptly pushed out of court clearly shows that they're be more than just some nut jobs that are,
Right,
just
right.
being
They're
crazy.
not just crazy. Somebody is fueling those beliefs in that. Whether there's any legitimacy to what they believe, I don't know. My speculation is probably not. But how am I to know? I don't know. But this is like a way they compromise people. I think so. If you read some of the CIA manuals and the FBI manuals, they have these acronyms on here's how you compromise a person and turn them into somebody that you control, or you they don't say you drug them. They kind of imply that with sexpionage, but they talk about the points you go to their idea of grandiose, their desire to be an important person, like this might be presented to somebody, or financial woes, whatever. They just look for those weaknesses and personalities. And I think that could be something going on here where these guys were being fed some sort of information that made them believe this.
Yeah. Right.
It gives a white guy right here, it looks like.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
Masonic Fraternal Police Department. And they're look how, I mean, if you saw somebody walking down the street with that.
Oh, that's a cop.
Yeah, you think it's a cop. You don't know the different, the slight differences in uniforms.
Dude, just think of the power that because they just must have, to no police, if you knew this was going on, would ever let you do this for dress over and over. You know what I mean?
Right.
This would be stopped.
There he is. Yeah, totally. And there's like a twerking video on there. It's a little weird. Yeah, I wish these photos weren't blocked out. Some of them are just gone.
And Kamala, though, her connection, she doesn't call herself a Templar. She's just associated with these two guys, possibly more in the group that's calling themselves Templars. Right?
Right. And yeah, so the connection with her is that relationship with Brandon Keel and how closely she worked with him and how she very much special thank you. I mean, they worked hand in hand basically, and how she, in my opinion, clearly got that guy off. And then everything he tweeted about was her. And there's a couple speeches he gives at, if this guy, there was a bunch of videos of him giving speeches at various places, and he's always speaking about Kamala, and as though he's speaking on behalf of Kamala and his position with the DOJ, or in California anyway, the state general attorney's office. And Kamala never, that I can find, has like publicly pushed back on any of this. Now, I'm not saying she's in that, but clearly the fact that they put him on leave, they didn't just fire him,
right?
And they got him off, and they didn't maybe kill him or whatever. It just makes you wonder if some of this ritual stuff or this compromising information, that he knows stuff that she's like, okay, I'm just going to let this guy off. We're going to let him go live in obscurity because there might be something to it.
Yeah.
I would love to know. I would love to interview this guy if he's out there somewhere, but I doubt that'll ever happen. I mean, I just can't believe this is a vice president that nobody's ever just, hey, what about this weird stuff? It baffles me.
Right. Do you think because I know these people are calling themselves Templars. I don't know how ritualistic or occult they are, but do you think secret societies, in the sense that they existed in the 19th century and even the early 20th century or mid 20th century, do you think that these, if they still exist, are they benign groups? Are they still powerful? What do you think?
I think they probably do exist. They're I think of it probably like fraternities at a college type thing.
Right.
And I think some of them probably do have a level of power. I know that a number of presidents have come from, was it Skull and Bones? Or at Yale, and a few of those other ones. The Knights Templar and all that, if I had to guess, if I had to speculate, I would say it probably does exist at a certain level in a transformed way, and that it's all intertwined with like the World Economic Forum, and I think they probably cross over with all that. So I think they probably do exercise a level of power, and I think they keep people on the surface of the organizations dumb, not unaware to what's actually going on. And I think they operate based on compromising people, the ones that are bad, especially they that's how they keep people in check, I think, because they just compromise everyone they can. So they have these levers of control. Are there good ones that exist? I don't know. I think there probably are ones that have good people in them that are well-intentioned. Like I said earlier, is those good ones, that's what's really difficult, is the things that are good are always going to be subject to being co-opted and targeted by those with bad intent to try and taint them. And I do believe that there's a lot of good in the world. I think humans are just innately, I think, very good and kind and capable of amazing things. But these collective organizations that are just intent on power fight against that. So I think there's an ebb and flow. I think there's good and bad in probably a lot of these organizations.
Yeah, I agree, dude. And it's funny, like when I first, and I'm sure you see it too, like it's so easy to get caught up in the conspiracy. Like that guy's got an orange shirt on.
Right. Yeah.
He's done.
You find those connections. Yeah.
Right. And, like a lot of people, I try not to do that because it's like, okay, so their shirt has a bull on it or whatever.
Or it used to be the Super Bowl commercials where everybody would analyze those for the stuff. And it got to a point, I used to love doing that, but it gets to a point where it's like, my friends and I, we've made films. I've been in films and shows and stuff where if I were directing something, I might say, hey, let's put like an all-seeing eye in the back just to mess with people. Yeah. And I bet that's going on.
No, and I'm sure you're right. And then we can like finish with this. So what's with propaganda? I'm starting to read, just like I'm reading about like the 1600s and all the Shakespeare and stuff like that, and his plays and how they were filled with occult symbolism.
Bacon?
Yes, Francis Bacon. That's what the book's about. It's called Gnostic America.
Yeah, I think I've read that one.
Oh, you have?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I've read Gnostic America. Actually, I've read one that has a similar title. It's not.
Or not. It's Rosicrucian America. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Rosicrucian. It's by Stephen Soda or something like that. I really like him, but it just was amazing that the symbolism that they were putting in Shakespeare to. It's not a new phenomenon. This
right, and the buildings in D.C. So Harold Laswell, he writes a book on. I can't remember the title, but it's basically like architectural propaganda, how those symbols are used to propagate and control, and it is fascinating. These symbols can come to have so much meaning to people that simply by, just like the flag, by showing it stirs up either patriotic emotion or divisive emotion at this point with, ever since taking the knee thing with Kaepernick and whatnot.
Right.
Or if you saw Zelensky last night, which was really pretty shocking to me, Pelosi comes out and hands Zelensky a folded up flag in the wooden triangle that you typically see the relatives of a dead soldier get.
Yeah.
I know my mom
I got
has
one right there.
Right. Yeah. I was just shocked by that. And then Zelensky hands them a Ukraine flag signed by all the soldiers in Bakwa or whatever you're saying, which my question is, I'm like, how many Nazis signed that flag? I don't know. They're not all Nazis, but he admits that there's some of them there, but that feeling that they get is they try to attach that to these. It's like little pillars that control us when we move around and stuff. It's fascinating.
Yeah. What's that name of that book? Because I would love to.
Harold Laswell, and it has to do with architecture. I don't know the exact name of it.
Okay, I'll have to look at it because I read a Tupper Saucy's Rulers of Evil. It's like a Jesuit book. Yeah. And so he went over all the architecture and just even how like the minuscule, like the things they made the statue out of were important, Yeah.
Okay. It's called The Signature of Power: Buildings, Communication, and Policy.
Signature of Power.
Harold Laswell.
I'm checking this book out. All right. Signature of Power. I'm going to take a look at this.
Yeah. He's got a lot
that sounds fascinating.
And Hitler used to put speakers around, like going into the different tactics that would play agitating music around the country to keep people on edge. And anxious and angry, to control them and divide them, and they use any means possible. This is what I should have mentioned when you asked about Bernays earlier. Is his thing, one of his main things is it's all about the points of contact and the channels of communication. As you seek to reach the public through every single available channel of communication that you can contact them with delivering your information to. Like nowadays, we might see that be a billboard. It might be the wall of a bathroom at a bar. You go take or it might be your grandmother if they can get their propaganda message in her mouth. I'm not saying don't trust your grandmother. I'm just saying, that's what they seek to do ultimately.
Dude, we got to do another show. I know you always do propaganda, but I would love to pick your brain on. So if you're willing to come, we got to do another one soon.
I love talking about like the actual tactics and the history of it. I actually don't get a chance to talk about that a lot. I try to relate.
Perfect, dude.
But,
well, I'm booking you, so consider it booked.
Cool, man. I appreciate you having me on. It's been fun. I know that I talk a lot sometimes.
No, dude, you talk perfect. Perfect. Don't even. But where can people find you? What's your podcast called? All that kind of stuff.
It's called The Propaganda Report on just any podcast wherever you listen to your shows. And I share the feed with Monica. So Monica's shows are on there. My shows are on there. And my website is propagandafight.com. And you can find me at youtube.com/Brad Binkley if you want to see all the videos very briefly until they get taken offline and demonetized and then taken offline midstream, or Rumble/Propaganda Report. And I'm also in Rokfin.com/Propaganda Report. And Freedom Act Radio on Twitter. And I believe that's propaganda.locals.com.
I'll put that. Locals. Yeah, I get that. Yeah. No, well, really, we're going to do this again soon, dude. I appreciate you. Have a wonderful Christmas.
You too, man.
And thanks for doing the show, dude.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Take care, everybody. I'll talk to you guys soon. My dog's barking. I made some nachos, so I'm out, everybody. Take care.